Here we go. So welcome to Intro to Strengths. This is transformational strengths. This is how I like to do this. I want to take you on a little bit of a journey tonight. I want to talk to you about some really important components to the strengths learning. I don't know if my screen is sharing in the way I want to, so give me one more second. I'm on a new computer. See, if I click, can you guys see where I'm going? That's my question. Did you go with me?
Yes.
Can you see unlock your momentum?
Yes.
Ah, fantastic. Thanks for the feedback. So here we go. So unlocking your momentum, if you're here, you took the strengths test and you also are building a business. And all of you are in doTERRA if you came on this call tonight, because this call is just for you. These are my people. This is my big why. I have quite a few. So 2.5 years ago, we had a very surprise new baby. We were not expecting him. He has changed everything for us. His name is Sebastian. Possibly has communication and positivity, probably some woo. And he is just lighting up our life. It's just changed everything. But these are my people, my husband, Matthew, and our blended family. Here's some of the clients that I serve that are outside of doTERRA. So I started in tech way back. I have clients who are artists. I have a lot of clients in wine because I actually live in the Sonoma County region of Northern California. So there's a lot of wine here. And some are nonprofits, some in retail energy. So here, these are people that I've shared the strengths message with and some that I've done leadership coaching for. Some of you don't even care about that, but I'm showing you anyway, which is fine. This is a picture of my actual area. This is my town and my county. We do all of my retreats outdoors when possible, but I really enjoy doing all of the strength stuff, the transformational work in a house setting where you move in with me for 2 days so that we can take a look on an intimate level and give you an experience of your strengths and your leadership. So you might see me occasionally post information about those retreats, and I also can come to you. We have our next one scheduled for this summer, but some of the diamonds are putting these on for their own teams, and it's a chance for us to be together. So the focus tonight, I want you to catch this phrase, you are enough. Like you are so enough just the way that you're wired. And there's a lot of information about strengths out there, but sometimes when we fixate on the data, we actually lose touch with that. We actually get a little vulnerable in that process, and we come away from what kind of taking this test was all about. So I just want you to anchor into that the way that I'm approaching this is that each of you is incredibly unique and gifted and perfect for whatever vision that you've set yourself to do. So who you are for your team, once you start awakening to who they are, you will have everything that you need to hit your vision. You just need to know how to aim them. So I'm going to simplify that for you tonight. So to make the most of our call tonight, I want you to commit to be present. So if you can turn some of your background noise off, that would be amazing. If you can think about anything else, like shutting off some notifications to allow yourself this hour so that you're not like relearning or only partly focusing. Just think about what you need to do to be present here today. The other thing is that I request it be a confidential space. That means when we get to the end and I want to do some coaching for those of you that are eager for that, I really would like, I'm going to shut the recording off and we never share that portion because your confidentiality is really important to me. Another thing is the judgment-free zone. So like we actually are entering into a space where everybody is okay just the way they are. Some of you don't live in a world like that, but I'm inviting you into a new space with me tonight where every single person on your team is equipped. And I'm going to have you try that mindset out for a little bit. The other thing to know is participation equals value. So what does that mean? It means that the extent that I allow you to engage and invite you to engage, that's the extent of value that you'll get. So I am sharing some slides and visuals. And then when we get into that engagement portion, the more you speak up or put in the chat box, the more you're going to enjoy it. So I just want to encourage you to risk a little bit and take ownership of your learning. I also want you to lean into the stretch because I'm using a language that's foreign to most of you. Some of you that have been with me for a while know my brother says it's because I live in Northern California. But there is something that we're like trying on this new language. And some of the way that I talk about how we think and talk about how we work isn't how you talk. And that's okay. So I just want you to lean into that and stretch a little bit and see what happens today. So the mindset that we need in order to enter into a strengths conversation is one of confident vulnerability. So confidence by itself, without any vulnerability, without any authenticity, is actually doesn't attract people unless you're male and white, really. Or it's like this place of like, if we have all this confidence and ego and we're up in this big zone, what happens? It's like, well, it's actually for women to do that in their businesses, we just end up intimidating everybody. So if we can have that confidence and we want to build confidence, but we want to also equally build the vulnerability, meaning our sense of vulnerability, our authenticity, our humility. We want to bring that forward also. So we're both confident and authentic, and that we make friends with that vulnerability. If we had too much vulnerability and no confidence, you can type in the chat box, what do we call that? It's like, well, for women, we call that weak. We don't want all that vulnerability. Some of you are building businesses and you don't want anyone sharing their personal story to you all of the time. It's exhausting. Or if you have high empathy, it's triggering. Some of you are more comfortable in vulnerability, and some of you are more confident when you're compartmentalized and just staying in that confidence. So that has to do with your strength set, which is totally okay. But again, what we want to do is to stop judging our blind spots. So I know what I am, I know what I'm not, and both are okay. So I know what I'm not is, yes, I have a blind spot. I have a bottom 5 in these 34 themes of strengths, and so does everybody else. So I don't need to look to try to be something I'm not. I just need to focus on being who I am and let what I'm not be okay. Strengths is about no longer mitigating weakness and trying to fix weakness. Strength is about embracing the talent that you have. And so that is the foundation of the work that I do. So you're going to notice me talking in these 3 categories tonight. One is you. Strengths is about you. I want you to master yourself like your business depended on it, because it does. I want you to master yourself like your connections and relationships depend on that, because it does. Like everything depends on you knowing yourself at a new level so that you can steer your ship any way that you choose and create possibility any way that you choose. So master yourself. The second component is your leadership. I want you to come into a beginner's mindset and unlearn everything you ever thought you knew about people and you knew about leadership. Because when you come into the strengths paradigm, you're going to notice, and I'm going to give you some more visuals tonight, that you are seeing the world through a strengths lens, like through your strengths. That is how you view the world. That's how I view the world. But everybody is viewing the world from their strengths lens. So we'd have to let go of being right about some of those things, and that impacts our leadership in powerful ways. The third thing is your influence. If you're growing your business, you are growing your influence. So I want to know and tune into, what is the impact that you're hoping to have in the world? How are you aiming your strengths towards your goals? And how can I support you to do that? So these are the 3 areas I want you to think about tonight. You, your self-mastery, your leadership, how you are with others, and the impact, your influence that you want to create. So to back up, like, what is strength? Some of you maybe have never been in the strengths conversation before. Clifton Strengths Finder is the name of the test. We're kind of using Clifton Strengths at this moment, hashtag Clifton Strengths. If you go on Twitter or Instagram, you're going to find a lot of posts that have that may have some resources for you. And so essentially the Strengths Finder 2.0 book, which comes with every assessment, you can read this, and there's many iterations of the strengths stuff. So there's lots of books with a short description on a topic that has the same info of the strengths. Many, many books. And actually in our doTERRA leadership and community group, I have a whole link that has some of those books available. I also have a Pinterest board you can follow. If you follow Coach Kate Pintor on Pinterest, I save all those when I find them into one of my folders there. So this was all based on over 40 years of research. So it's a really special algorithm. And so I want you to just, for some of you that may have analytical, you need to know how do we know that this is how is it not putting people in boxes? And so their come from is that 40 years of research, they've tweaked, they've adjusted, and they've verified all of this process. So the father of strength psychology is Donald Clifton, who died in 2003. And he, along with Tom Rath and a team of scientists at Gallup, created the online assessment. So in 2004, they changed it formally to Clifton StrengthsFinder to honor him. So StrengthsFinder 2.0 is one of the books. Another book might be How Full Is Your Bucket? A book that you may want to get the audio version of is Strengths-Based Leadership. And there's also a mini description of that book in our doTERRA leadership group, like a little animated cartoon, which gives you a good sense of that. So over 40, 50 years, lifelong work, this is where it comes from. That's why it's called that, and the Strengths app has Clifton in front of everything. So here's what Gallup has found. People who use their strengths every day are 6 times more likely to be engaged in their work and 3 times more likely to say they have an excellent quality of life. Now, 6 times doesn't sound like a lot, but if you imagine you are piloting an aircraft and you adjusted just by 6 points, you just like moved a little bit, what would happen to your destination? You're going to end up in a completely different place, right? I'm pretty sure that's how Columbus, that's how he hit what is now known as the United States. So a little bit of directional challenge actually impacts something. So 6 times sounds small, but it's actually really big. And so for people who can say that they have an excellent quality of life, you can imagine the impact of that. Now, here's how unique you are. 34 talent themes. 1 in 278,000 are the chances of you having the same in a random order. And I'm pretty sure that's the top 5. 1 in 33.4 million would be the same in the same order. 1 in 12.2 trillion, top 10 in the same order. And hello, those people will never be born probably at the same time as you. So that is how unique you are. So when you find someone that has 4 strengths the same, 3 is more common, but 4, you notice that you might vibe a little bit the same. When you have 7 out of 10 the same, like I have a colleague, and we can just like work in harmony and rhythm, but we have the same blind spot. So we actually have to go ask for help because I can't actually advise her in her blind spot because I also don't think like that. So we love working together and it's fun and we don't have a lot of confusion, but we have a similar blind spot. So you don't necessarily want to partner with people who are the same as you. The next thing I want you to recognize is that the 4 domains of leadership that they talk about, that means all of these themes, they found some similarities in the research. So they put them into 4 categories. So they did this with statistical analysis. And this is how these 4 came from. But here's the thing, as I show you this. These 4 categories, if you don't have influencing themes, that doesn't mean you don't influence. So notice what you think when you see this. It just means you influence differently. If you have executing like tons of those and no relationship or strategic thinking, that doesn't mean you don't do relationship. It just means that you relate differently. So you're going to have different needs inside of those. So these are the colors that Gallup uses for these. And some of the other companies may change the colors, but doTERRA is using this. So I have some of you are coming to me and going, I think I'm all blue. Or I think I'm red. And so I try to stick to these colors in all of my work too, just to support you, because it's a lot of data. And so hopefully this will help you in understanding a little bit about the needs of each section. So in one of my other classes, I actually will go in depth about these domains, but tonight I just want to give you a summary because we're covering a lot of information and I don't want to go too fast. We are actually teaching people how to map these. So I formulated this in one of my grids. So it automatically maps it for me. And that means I like to look at a team or an individual and see where is their top 10. And then I divide them in the categories over here. And I like to kind of take a look and see how these fall together. Another thing I want you to think about is this season, and I'm coming back over because I can't really see your faces or the chat box while I'm over there. So what do you see now? Can you see me? Can you see each other? No, you can't see each other. Can you still see the slides? I can't tell here. Okay.
It looks like we're just seeing like a very pretty mountain.
Oh, excellent. It's a nice mountain. Beautiful. Okay,
but we can see each other.
At the top of my screen. I can
but
see
you
along
can see
with
each other in your screen. Okay, great. I love my new computer, but I'm a little bit lost as to what you guys can look at. Can you see the slide now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, perfect. So I use strengths to raise emotional intelligence. That's my focus. Transformation, raising emotional intelligence. And this quote from Emotional Intelligence 2.0 is really significant because it describes to me how I even experience my own strengths. So in a very real sense, we have two minds, one that thinks and one that feels. And this reminds me of the axes that we map the strengths on. So we have a task axis and a relationship axis. And to me, for my own strengths, I have trouble shifting from being task-oriented into relationship. I have to do a somatic exercise or feel my body in order to do that because I'm in this head zone, I'm in one focus. And then when I just need to be present and be, then I want to use my connectedness and relator and some of my other strengths. It's hard for me to go from one to the other. So this 4-domain mapping was really pretty powerful for me. And I mapped my top 5 here. And I like to look at the shapes and I like to see whole teams and I love to see my husband's on there and my kids and I mapped everybody. I've mapped my entire family. Literally everybody has taken the test. And so what's really important about it is when you know where you are in these, the needs of each domain are very different and they each contribute something really special. So when you want to set the conditions for focus and for connection and for learning, it's really helpful to remember first and just get grounded in who am I talking to? If I'm talking to somebody with high influencing, they have very different needs. So they might need high energy. They want all of the learning maybe to be tied to something they care about. So I want you to think about that in terms of how you even roll this out. Are you aware where your teams are in each of those domains? We'll go into more depth in another class. But as an overview, this is a really fun exercise to get to know yourself and the people that you're working with. As I use strengths for teams, what I'm using these for as a strengths strategy coach. So my colleague Joe Self is Gallup certified. I am strengths strategy certified. So you have this beautiful space of both of us at the same time. And I'm going to introduce Joe, and tomorrow morning we're doing a live at 9 a.m. so that you can get to know her on 9 a.m. Pacific. That's noon Eastern. So I want you to understand a little bit where I'm coming from for your teams with this stuff, because why do it? There's a lot of data out there, but why do it? And it's really because we want to create interdependence. When we are enrolling people from a place of codependence into our businesses, it ends up being like scorekeeping, like I taught you this, now I need you to go do it. And then we start building resentments and we don't know how to close communication loops because of how we're doing team. When we're in dependence on our team, like you're waiting for someone to show you something, or you're waiting for your upline, or you're waiting for them to call you back and you don't feel resourceful, then your strengths can fall into this toxic triangle. So this is higher level use of this strengths language, but this is what I feel is really important when you're platinum and above. Some of you that are silver or below, or you're in other kinds of companies, you already know when you see this how important it is. But some of you, this is going to just make it a little bit too complicated at this moment. So I do want to talk about some of the other components, but I don't want you to forget that there is a raw and mature part of each of your themes. And sometimes we fall into the toxic triangle. And the way that we are with people, we don't really know how to do that. So building a team in network marketing can feel like going back to high school and junior high. And some of you, I know that it's feeling like that for you right now. So this strengths is a way for us to have a common language and work it out and learn to close loops and develop an interdependent team where all voices are heard and learn how to have strategic conversations. So it's more than just which strength am I aiming where. It's really about how are we going to do life together? How are we going to build this business? How are we going to thrive? What's happening with that? The way I look at strengths, and one of my mentors had said this for me, and anything that I say, I mean, nothing I've said even tonight, I really can think that I've originated any of it. Everything I've learned, I'm passing on from people that taught it to me. And that's the same for you. I actually give most of my own curriculum away because I don't feel like any of it's intellectual property, except obviously the trademark names of the themes. So in this space, board of directors, I want you to start thinking about your strengths. I want you to memorize this word, board of directors, these 3 little words, because you have some advisors in your head. And this is the way for me that strengths really became a part of something special. So in your top 5, this is your autopilot. This is just, you just do this wherever you go. Those top 5 are trying to contribute something. Your 6 through 10, provide a little bit of balance. If you haven't unlocked the rest of your results and you only did your top 5, that's okay. But I just want you to know you're using all the way up through 15 most likely. And so 6 through 10 may be a little louder, and 11 through 15 you can resource by intention. I have had a couple clients this week when they started digging into the learning of 11, 12, 13, discovered something about themselves that gave them a major breakthrough in why they weren't building momentum, like how they were sabotaging themselves. And so I do want you to stay curious. If you don't have the 69 to unlock the rest of your results, start putting pennies aside, give up your Starbucks, because you're going to want that data if you're building a business. It's super helpful. 16 through 21, they say it's outside of the resource. You're a little bit less blind. And then I say like 22 through 30. I never remember what order those are in because I'm just not thinking about any of those. And then my very bottom 5 are so blind to me. Oftentimes when we look at other people who have those, we go into comparison. We don't know how to vibe with them. We don't see things the same way. And so we really have to start working on not judging those themes that are in the blind spot. So that means getting curious about them and figuring out what gift are they? What do they bring to the table, even if you're not wired that way? So we want to value all of them equally, just like people. The individual track of learning strengths is for you. Your assignment's going to be, what are my strengths? What's my board of directors? What do they need in order to function? What do they need to focus? What do they want to contribute? What does it look like when my themes are in overuse? And if my achiever's out of whack, I can become so goal oriented that I forget to check in on a heart level with my family. Because it's like, did we do it? Did we do it? Did we do it? So in an overuse, it can feel like they're never doing enough, because achiever's my number 4. That means on Saturday when they want to play, I still want to check everything off the list, including play. If we played, then I want to plan about what we're going to play. And then I want to check it off my list so I can feel like it was a good day. If I don't get anything done, I feel stuck. I feel like I'm independence. I might go into the toxic triangle if I don't have something to check off. It's just my wiring. And so when you know yourself like that and you know that overuse, you can start being mindful about what's happening and what you're creating, and turn the volume down on some of those strengths and turn the volume up on some others. Another component of this work is the triggers. And I actually do have a chart. If you decide to join Spark Your Strengths, you're going to get a chart that has all of this data in there, so you don't have to come up with it on your own. Triggers. Triggers would be when I should on myself, like, oh, I should have done more if it was achiever. Or I am shitting on other people, like they should have done more. I could go through every 34 themes tonight and tell you what those triggers are, and we may do some at the end, but you can start by just noticing what frustrates you. A trigger is something that might make you go into fight or flight, or it's something that's really frustrating. So when you start doing this learning, it's not just what is the strength contributing, but also what frustrated me. And frustration tracks you back to a need that you had that wasn't filled. And when you start taking ownership for your triggers and for those needs, you're going to find your business transform and your leadership will transform. So this is a lot of data to learn, but we are going to simplify it for you. You need to know that all of this data is available, like pretty much all of it you can access. So it's not something that's going to be hard to reach to. I also find it interesting and hilarious to find characters. I might do this several different iterations, but who's on your board of directors? Who's actually if these were guides, what form do they take? And so these characters might change, but the way that you relate and the advice and the voice that they are in your life, if you have a critical voice in your head, maybe that's your maximizer, maybe it's your strategic, like mine. And think about that. What are the stories in your head, and what strengths might those be attached to? This is a very fun, creative thing to do with your team and get to know each other a little better. because your activator might look different than mine. Your activator might not be Oprah saying, you know, like inspiring and getting them going. Your activator might look like a guy with a whip, you know. It's like, I don't know. But when we get to know each other in that way, this is a really fun, creative way to do that. This particular one I made on PicMonkey. And so I used like a collage, and then I just uploaded some free images from Pexels and Pixabay. So again, looking at your strengths, what do my strengths want to contribute? What do they need? And what do they fear? Those are some things that you want to start tracking through this process. You don't have to sit down and write it all down at once, but you're going to notice these are the things that come up if you really use this work for transformation. Another thing that you want to know, this is a funny little image on here, but when your emotional needs aren't being met on your team or anywhere in your life, and your strengths have needs that aren't being met, the 4 horsemen, which is John Gottman came up with this, who studied marriage for 50 years. The 4 horsemen will appear as your brain goes into sort of the survival mode. And so these are the sign bearers that a breakdown is coming. Now, you need a breakdown to get to a breakthrough, so don't get scared. But the 4 horsemen are the need to be right, the need to look good, the need to be comfortable, and the need to be in control. And these 4 horsemen are what are happening in the toxic triangle. This is where blame comes from. This is where shame and contempt, this is what that's all about. It has to do with what you needed in that moment. For instance, my husband and I were talking about something last night, and I knew I was right, and he wasn't getting it. And I couldn't let my need to be right be more important than connecting with him, because he has high empathy and harmony. So if I go into being right, I'm going to trigger his empathy and harmony, and he's not going to feel emotionally safe. So, I mean, he is, but you know what I mean. So I want you to start thinking about that. So it's not like I'm blaming him for getting it wrong, or for, I have to take responsibility for my trigger, but I also have to remember that every time there's some kind of tension, one of these 4 horsemen are present, and it is upon me, it's upon you to start observing yourself in real time and knowing when this is happening, because your strengths might have something they need. Because the problem, again, going back, is the strengths lens. The problem is how we are looking at the problem. The problem isn't necessarily about what really went down. The problem is about the connection. And it's just the way that we're viewing it, because we think we're all seeing it in a certain way. And we hold our opinions that tightly about other people. We have breakdown on our teams and lots of drama. So the strengths isn't really, it's going to help and improve some things, and it's going to make your life so much more wonderful. And I couldn't be more excited about what doTERRA is offering. But the real anchor, because some of that you guys will get tired of, the real anchor and the real important thing for you to remember is it's your vision and your strengths lens. That is your highest work. Yes, we're going to learn strengths to get there, and we're using that language. But the problem is about how we see everything. The problem is that we judge ourselves. The problem is that we don't know how to build connection with others when they don't function like us. The problem is we're not aware, oftentimes, of those competing commitments and those needs that are happening. So you have to explore your strengths lens if you want to go that direction. So I actually don't want to go there yet. Let's go back over to... Dun, dun, dun. Thanks, guys. I'm looking at, I want to see if I can open, I pulled some tabs open, and I want to, are you going with me? You seeing my slides? And maybe I can switch to some other windows and see it. Okay. So I want to show you, this is what a sample team grid. Somebody say yes, I can see it.
Yes, I can see it.
Perfect, thank you. Sample team grid. Do you guys have these? This is what they look like. You can make it. I can give you a copy. Joe can give you a copy. There's probably some better ones, but this is the one that I use. I have to adjust the coloring in here. It looks like my formulas oftentimes get a little bit funky the longer I use it. So these should be gold. But I like to, again, we're mapping and looking at the teams, and then taking a look at what the 4 domains are. So that's a great resource for you if you are leading a team. And I have one of these, of course, for my family. when you log into the Gallup Strength Center and you take a look at your strengths, I do have all 34 of my unlocked, and this is how I would go down and do that. And then look at all of these resources if you haven't checked it. Signature themes, insight and action planning guide. This is one of my favorites. The Strengths Insight Guide is amazing. And I just want to encourage you to schedule time every week to go and see this valuable information that's free, that's right here, which is where you need to start. So these are really powerful. Also, there is a podcast called Theme Thursday. And this one here is at coaching.gallup.com. You can see the tab up here. And look, there's a Theme Thursday tab. And then look here, you can register for this new season. All of these wonderful things over here. And they have companion guides. These companion guides are the bomb. If you haven't checked them out yet, you download it and it's brilliant. It's really well made and makes so much sense. So I want you to make use of this. There's also an app called Clifton Strengths. However, I have been told that if you took the test at leadership, or you're going to take it in the back office for those of you that end up, if that happens, the app won't work for that for at least a year. So people are logging into the app going, why doesn't it work? And it's like, well, they just weren't able to integrate that yet. I'm not a Gallup employee, so I have no data on that for you, except an employee gave me that information. So if you can't see your strengths through the app, don't be sad. Come to the Strength Center. It's all here. There's also a way on the app to share your strengths with your community, which is great and makes it easy. But you can do it without it. And then in the Empowered You section on your doTERRA back office, look at all of these amazing videos. These are going to actually, some of you have already looked at them, some didn't see it yet. I think you don't have to even log in the whole way. So it's just Empowered You Living Your Strengths. So these are amazingly well put together. They make so much sense. It takes the strengths in their original context, and it's really powerful. Let me just stop that share for a second. I know it's a lot of information, but you'll have this for your group, and we recorded it so you can come back. I'm going to hit stop share. I also have, I love the insight cards. $15 if you haven't got them. I bring these to the meetings because when we connect with each other, we can just read right off the card, and it's something to have in your hand. They make a great gift for your team members, and you can get those on the Gallup store. So go to the shopping cart. Joe, if I'm saying anything wrong about that cart, let me know, but I'm pretty sure that's how I got these, was in the Gallup cart. So they're fabulous, great coaching resource and a great resource for your team. Some of your upline probably bought them for you already. I also like the book Anchor to Your Strengths, Melinda Breikeisen. She is such a sweetheart. I talked with her the other day, and it has all of the oils matched up with your themes. So you can anchor in your learning. You can learn how to facilitate that as a class. So if you are like nerding out on strengths like some of us are, you could actually host strengths classes and talk about your oils. Like how great would that be? Then in your company, anywhere else, I mean, this is how anchoring works. We know that this works. All of the science research is there. So it's a really powerful thing for you just to start entering into that conversation. Let's see. So those are the resources that are there. Now I want to talk about like how I am specifically using it. And we're going to do that. So we have a group called Spark Your Strengths. Some of you are already into it. Spark Your Strengths is a PDF that I created, and I think I can probably share that if it allows me to. I'll let you guys see it. And here we go. So we created this. I'm going to be making a few edits to it to add some of the resources I just talked about, so you can have one place that you find all the links for everything. But what I have found in working with doTERRA groups for 12 months is that we need to set up a period of time, and I would say 21 days, like to do a 21-day project. I would say bring your people together for 3 classes to do this first portion of Spark. And then I would suggest that you have myself or Joe come on and coach the last exercise of it, which I will show you. Because what we need to do, there's so much data. We just need to go together and do it like a mastermind. So that means seeing your themes, having accountability to go listen to the podcast. So get out of the confusion. Like, don't let how hard it seems be in the way of what this language could do for you. So break it down. Break it down. I have over 7,000 hours coaching people, and about 4,000 of those are in strengths. And what I have found is if we chunk it down and activate our own strengths towards that learning, it goes so much faster and it takes the burden out. And I find that people learn better when we do it in sort of a mastermind, which is what the Spark Your Strengths group is. So the second level of all of this is claiming your strengths and really digging deep into these. Like, what does this strength help me do? What does it need to be able to contribute and show up? What do my strengths find frustrating? What do I need to hear from my upline when I'm frustrated and overwhelmed? What do I need to hear from my spouse? Have you ever had your spouse take the test? And then what frustrates others about this gift that I have? Or this gift that I am? What makes them frustrated? And then look at, like, okay, the balcony and the basement of these strengths, or now they're calling it raw versus mature. The podcasts talk all about this. And in our file section, we have lists of all of this data. So you just have to go into the file, and you can make a binder and print all the stuff that you think you need. If you have input, you will love the file section because my input learners help put that together. So those are some things that you have to think of in that depth. But I want you to take 21 days to do this. I want you to take 21 days with your team. And so we're going to rewrite this in a way that helps break that down and maybe do it together. You have to learn about yourself, and then you get to learn about other people, and then you can apply these strengths to the situation and towards your goal. And then in my personal take on this is I want to use it. I have strategic, achiever, activator, arranger, futuristic, belief right in a row. So what I care about is a meaningful goal for you, but I want to be really intentional about what goals we set. So I start with my connectedness, which is my number one. And then I want to think really intentionally about who's driving this vehicle that you're in. Maybe you're not in a bus. Maybe you're driving a Porsche and your business is going fast. Some of you are in a minivan. Some of you are in a little Prius and you want something else. Some of you are ready for a Tesla and you're all in. And so you're like, I'm going to swallow the strength stuff and get as many resources as I can. So I want you to think about that. What are you doing? What are you doing with your goal? Do you know your strengths well enough to know that, like, hey, up until now, I was driving this bus with positivity, but my goals were still sort of like in Fantasyland a little bit, and I didn't listen a whole lot because I kept reframing, we're all good, we're all good, we're all good, and then suddenly I realized I didn't hear some people on my team, so I got to move positivity to the back. Or maybe shotgun. And I'm not saying that happens with your positivity every time, so please don't hear that. I'm just trying to use some examples that you guys have shared with me. So all of the themes have an overuse. It's just how it is. So when you think about who in your life and what happened with you, what's happened, what are the obstacles that you see that are in the way of getting to your goal? Let's talk about where that thinking comes from and how do we break through those obstacles. If you have blocks, and when we say blocks, like if there's something you just keep hitting the brick wall or you sabotage yourself, we need to have a deeper conversation. And because I have a transformational coaching certification, before I did strengths, I really want to go there with you. I'm not just gonna talk to you about your themes. If you and I talk together, we're gonna go deep, because that's the resource I want to be for you. And if you don't want to go to that level, you never have to go, but that is the invitation. So I want you to decide what level of safety that is. And I want to shift and start looking at this bus exercise with you, because this is what we do in Spark, and that's what I want to invite you into. So I'm going to say, let's see here, we're doing great on time. We're doing great on time. Let's take some questions, and we'll take some questions, and then we're actually going to coach just the way that I do in Spark, so that you get an idea of how to use that in a way that propels you towards your goal. Does that sound good? Give me a thumbs up if you're ready to go. Okay, so Joe says, yeah. So how do we get into Spark? So Spark is a pilot right now. It's a membership group. I have a new website coming out in May 14th. So there will be an embedded website with videos so that I don't have to be there personally. So that's coming. But in the interim, for $49, a one-time payment, you get in my group for the whole year. And once a month, I do a coaching class like this, which is why I want you to experience what that looks like. The PDF is in there. I'm doing Facebook Lives. I'm teaching you how to facilitate this PDF and this way of teaching. So it's not just like, yes, for you and your goals, and I want you guys to become masters and facilitators of it. Anybody can facilitate a strengths conversation, but you need to learn how to do that. So yes, so how do you sign up? So I will give you a link when we're done at the end of our call. It's also as easy as sending me a friend request and PayPaling the $49. That's it. That's all it is. And I'll type it right here in case any of you are like, I'm already in. Let me see if I can get in there. Let's see. Everyone. And I have a landing page that you can do it on, but it's basically going to give you this link. And let's see. Oh, I have to change. I'm sending that just to one person because like the whole thing is showing up there. Hey, Joe, will you repost that for me? Oh, there it is. I had to scroll up. There we go. Perfect. This will give you guys a chance to get a head start if you're ready. So once you send the $49, that puts your email in. Send me a friend request is the fastest way on Facebook. And I will add you in tonight when we're done the call. Or Autumn will. Autumn is my assistant. So, and then our next class will be scheduled. So I do one a month. I did April's, but we're going to be doing some lives. And all of those recordings are in there. So you get to go and listen. You're going to have to pace yourself. Everybody take a deep breath. Pace yourself because you're not late. Every month we start over. So every time you start, you're on time. Nobody's late. You don't have 8 classes to catch up on. You're right on time and you're enough. And anyone is welcome into Spark Your Strengths. Anybody is welcome. Beyond that, and I can show you guys the other thing. So to move into this transformational portion, so that is just Sparks. That is strengths appreciation and strength spotting with that goal. This is the very entry level. What happens when you start doing this work, and we're going to talk in a moment, what happens is, what do I do with my triggers? What do I do when I'm sabotaging? What do I do when I can't get my people to take the task? What do I do in that space? So it stirs up all of this other stuff. If you are growing this business, then you want to consider joining Into the Looking Glass, which is the more advanced program. It is a considerable more of an investment. It's $225 for 5 months because you have to have something at stake. You probably want to be at silver before you take that on, unless you're already at some level of success in some type of business in your life. I would highly recommend you to be at least silver to do Into the Looking Glass. Into the Looking Glass starts with identity. So like we just started a new group last week. I have another group I'm ready to start in 2 weeks. We will start 2 weeks from tonight if you want to join that group. And what we're going to do is we're going to have 6 group coaching sessions, but it's intimate. We're talking about the deep stuff. So all of the homework is looking at, who am I? What are the stories? How did these strengths even show up? How did these develop? What are the stories I tell about myself? What are the stories I'm ashamed of? What do I think's in the way of my leadership? So we look at all of that. Then we move into my strengths lens and how I view the world and looking at where those paradigms are coming from. And then we move beyond into that, into what do I do with feedback? What do I do when all of that conflict hits? Who am I in that space? How do I let stuff roll off? How can that feedback become data? How do I give good feedback in a way that doesn't make people feel like they're shut down? How do I motivate and activate my team members? So that all has to do with your strengths lens. So that's what that program is about. And then it moves into even looking like closing loops in your life. Because my friends, you can't just take on new learning. You got to have some necessary endings. There's things you have to stop before you take on new habits. Some of you know this to be true. Some of you right now have 6 things you should have finished already before coming on this call. And it's like, and your energy is not going to lie to you, but it's impacting. So you're not late to the party. You're not late in the strengths journey. You're not late in your business, but you have to start being more intentional about how you are going to build. I work with a team of presidential diamonds, and I can tell you that every single strength that made it there, but there's many people who didn't do this into the looking glass kind of work. So when they got there, they built something amazing. The money was wonderful, but it's not what they wanted, and their life is not where they wanted it to be. How awful is that? Or their team doesn't want to work with them anymore. So as you're building, you have to build with the end in mind. Like, what are you building? Are you aware of what you're building? What do you do with your blind spot? What do you not even know you don't know? That's what Into the Looking Glass does. It does it in this really safe way. You know, why that program is really important to me is, some of you know this, but in 2004, I fell and sprained my ankle, and my sympathetic system it broke, like it wouldn't shut off. So it spread through every limb in my body, and I ended up with reflex sympathetic dystrophy. And so in that space, when I was really depressed, couldn't function, and for somebody with strategic achiever activator, and you cannot do a thing that you think you're supposed to do, it's just a recipe for like sign me up to kill myself. And that's really how I felt. It's like, I don't know how to be a mom. I don't know how to do my life if I don't have a body that's a resource. I was really, really depressed. I was invited to a 4-day Gallup retreat for strengths in 2007. And so I've been in this stuff for, 11 years. But what I noticed when I took the test, and what I needed coaching on when I looked at that bus exercise, it was that these were like the 5 ways that I beat myself up. These are the five things I think that are preventing me from hitting my goal. I did not view these as strengths. So the problem was up here in how I was relating to myself. So just like whatever came up for you when you saw these strengths and we think of how you use them, that's your personal development work right there. The strengths are just a gateway to get to what you really need to talk about and what you really need to work through if you're going to decide to lead your team. So it doesn't have to be as complex as that. You can just start appreciating them and spotting them and aiming them and getting clear on who you are and whose you are. I think that's a great place to start. But what's going to come up while you do that are these blocks, these other things that are happening. What's going to come up and get in the way in your leadership, and what your team's going to try to give that feedback to you, is that the way you view things isn't the only way to view it. And you have to develop some flexibility and be able to adjust yourself and adjust for the people that are coming in, and not judge their perspective, but go, oh, wow, I'm going to take myself a little lighter. Wow, I noticed I wanted to pull back there. Wow, I have trouble building trust with that person. I'm not sure if that person likes me. I'm all in my head. Well, my need to be right is so present. And when you can do that in your leadership and you hold it lightly, because you have an army of volunteers that have just signed up in your business, and you hold yourself lightly, the strength stuff becomes just a way of conducting a symphony. And people will magnetize to you because your influence will grow. And it's not going to feel like you're selling. It's going to be like you're changing the world. Because that's the whole point. That's why Gallup and doTERRA are such a great match. Because we're all here to help people have healthy lives and healthy minds and prosper. And that means your money conversations, all of that, we can use the strengths language for all of that. It's really powerful. So that's a little bit. I would love to take some questions, and then let's move into some coaching. So let's take questions so that we can close the recording. Because those of you that that made the time to be here, you have the privilege of hearing those kinds of conversations. So it's super important that we have the confidentiality. So I know some of you really, really appreciate that. So, okay, so let me see these questions. So would I explain how Spark works? Sure. Online, yes. Spark is a secret Facebook, like the logistics of it. Really what it is you send a PayPal payment. Super easy, $49. Send me a friend request. I'm going to add you to a secret Facebook group called Spark Your Strengths. Inside of that group, there's about 100 people. It's pretty small because I haven't marketed it. I really vet people that come into the work with us because of how deep it is. So it's not something that I plan to make 1,000. We're doing a membership site with videos for those that want to go that direction. But we're working with an intimate group. It feels like a mastermind. Have you guys been in a mastermind before? So it's like but you guys are all teaching each other what you learn. We have all 34 themes present, which is exciting. So I will teach some of the strengths. I will show you how to map your 4 domains in there. There's videos inside that group that tell you how to do it. How am I going to use it? And then you guys come on and be like, I listened to this podcast today and it just rocked my world. And then you share that. And then every month, once a month, we do a group coaching like this. And I will either teach you how to bring all of your people on and we'll go through and do it, or you can learn how to facilitate the actual PDF, which is like, what's the point of Spark? The point of Spark is that you have to come together and get deliberate and intentional about setting the time aside to listen to podcasts, to think about each of those themes, to look at the reference guide and get to know it. You have to own it. Nobody can feed and spoon feed this to you. If you want to be spoon fed, then you need to hire me to work with you individually. But it's not as cheap as that. Or Joe has an amazing class coming, and we're going to talk about that tomorrow morning at 9. I don't want to do everything, but tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Pacific, she has another type of class that you can do that's a little shorter term, and probably will fit for a few of you. So let me see these. So a couple strengths that just don't seem right. Melissa, I know. Okay, unmute Melissa, because I'm going to guess what they are. I'm guessing in my mind what I think they are, but I want you to tell me.
Hey.
Hi.
Hi.
Welcome.
Tell you now, or you want to guess first?
No, I want you to tell me.
Deliberative and harmony.
Awesome. Those are in my bottom 5. Deliberative is my 34. So what was it that made you surprised? I hear that about deliberative a lot.
I'm not indecisive at all. In fact, if anything, I make decisions quickly and then deal with whatever the consequences are. That doesn't ring true. And as much as I'd love to be harmonious, my daughter is watching and she will tell you that is not my strength at all. So,
right.
Yeah, I just, both of those are off to me.
What are your other 3 in your top 5?
Relator, analytical, and responsibility.
Okay. So I'm definitely hearing analytical right now, which is good, because every analytical person I've had has considered how the data created this result. So, which is not a problem, it's a gift, because we need somebody to do that. So that's really spectacular. So the pairing of strengths obviously has an impact, right? The pairing of strengths. So how things show up for you is going to be different for somebody else. I think with harmony, my personal experience, and I might unmute Jo in a second and ask her for her take too as another coach's insight in here. My experience with harmony with my clients is that oftentimes it's an awareness that they can set conditions for things like nobody's business. So it's not that they don't do conflict. It's not that it's that there's a certain thing that might trigger them, but they are more aware of what the conditions of harmony would be, or they have this awareness. And same thing with deliberative and analytical. There's like this insight that you bring wherever you are. And so you might be willing to consider some things and ask some questions that other people aren't in tune with. And with deliberative is very clear. So the way that description shows up, it doesn't fit with a lot of my deliberative clients. And so I'm not surprised to hear in either of those that those maybe don't resonate in the way it's described. Another talent, which I wasn't sure if you would mention, was input. For a lot of people, input's about output. And so as you listen to the podcast on each of these themes, and there's several seasons, like what are we at 4 now, Jo? We have 4 complete seasons at least. And so input for a lot of people, they're like, but I don't collect things. Are you saying I'm a hoarder? It's like, no, you're not saying you're a hoarder. Although I do love watching that show, Hoarders. It's amazing. No, that is not input. Input sometimes is I want to be seen as the resource in doTERRA. Most of the input, I'm like, oh my goodness, ladies, you are so competitive when you have input. You want to be seen as the resource sometimes. So it's like, it's a great, yeah, I'm getting a lot of thumbs up. So it's not, and again, that's not a problem, but it's like, wow, I have to remember to acknowledge my input people and point out like, hey, the input people put that file section together so we could all live and not have to look up every single oil. So, those kinds of things. And for deliberative, we have a couple people with deliberative number 1 in our Spark group, and we've had some awesome dialogue about that because their pairings, of course, are different too. But it's a great exploration. So I would say look at the pairings and check out the different kinds of people that are doing those podcasts. Did you listen to the deliberative and the doTERRA section in the Empowered You?
I did, but it was even before leadership, so I need to go back and listen to it again.
Yeah, and you know what? And some of the podcasts, if I don't resonate with the application that person had, it doesn't fit with me at all, like depending on which strength it was. So it really has to do with seeing where that's at. And I wouldn't any of you, don't pigeonhole yourself in your top 5. Use all 15. Unlock the rest, especially if you don't see the top 5 in there, because all 15 are probably happening at some point. And then you can see a more complete version of you. If people only viewed me as my connectedness, I would feel very divided because that's like one version of me. Yeah. And then all of my other strengths that I have are, in different categories. So I don't want anyone to just look at me as connectedness and label me as that. Cause I'm like, well, that's like a piece, but I also get stuff done. Yeah. It has to do with your own identity. Right. And identity is like tricky business with your team. So here's my advice for you. Don't go tell your team who they are because you have their strengths. Let them tell you who they are. Okay, here's some other good stuff. Thanks, Melissa. Mm-hmm. Let's see. What is my best way to coach my leaders when number 1 empathy is my 32? Lorinda, unmute, my friend. My empathy is 32. Where are you? I'm trying to find you.
Hi.
Yes. What do you do for a living outside of doTERRA?
Well, I was a massage therapist, so it surprised me that my empathy was so low.
Yeah.
Because I do feel for my clients, but I have trouble, I guess, putting myself in other people's shoes. Mm-hmm. I guess that's the issue, and I just don't understand them sometimes. And my own son has this in his top 5. And we don't get along. We don't get along very well. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely a problem for me.
So let's reframe that. So you are a gift for them. Even though it feels like so I'll tell you, my husband has number 1 empathy, and it's 32 for me. And 2 of my children have empathy in the top 5, 2 out of the 5. And so I often know I feel like I have to like tiptoe because I just want to say sometimes how things are, but I miss things. I don't have the radar because I hear, like, even when I talk with you guys and you're like, I'm blocked and I'm triggered. It's perfect for a coach because I'm in this space. I don't have to feel your shoes. I can see them and I can connect to it. So it really becomes about knowing what their empathy needs, not trying to be the empathy. Because it doesn't mean you don't have empathy. This is a result of a test. So it doesn't mean that you don't have empathy, mm-hmm. which I had to define for my husband. So it doesn't mean I'm not empathetic. It just means that's not what I lead with. So I started that for a second. Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just wanted to add, because one of the things that was really interesting for me, my empathy is very low as well. But a couple of years ago, I was just trying to get an idea of what I wanted to do with my life, where I was really going. I mean, I was already coaching, but I still didn't have my direction very clear necessarily. And so I had posted on Facebook, when you think of me, what do you think my best abilities are? And I said specifically abilities, right? And I wasn't looking for qualities about me. And I got from a lot of people empathy. Like, you're so empathetic. You're so empathetic. My empathy is like 27 as a talent. So there's something about cognitive empathy and then the talent empathy. And I think that's sometimes a difficult distinction with the words, because we have a Merriam-Webster's understanding of the word, but not a talent understanding of the word. And we have to really kind of be careful to separate those two. Mm-hmm. And what happens for me is my ideation, my strategic, and my communication coupled with connectedness and positivity. And I mean, your talents always work as a team. No talent is ever working alone. So I saw another question in here that, like, you were trying to guess what somebody's talent was. And I don't think that's a problem. But what happens is I hear people, I hear patterns, I can understand people. My strategic and ideation jumps ahead and can take in a lot of information. But exactly what you said, Lorinda, is, but I don't put myself in their shoes.
Right.
And I think that's a very key thing to keep in mind with empathy, is when people have that as a talent, it's almost hard not to put yourself in the shoes of another person. But when it's cognitive empathy, it just comes from a different place. So it doesn't mean you're not empathetic. It just means it comes from a different talent structure. So, and you don't necessarily feel the need to put yourself in your place or get sucked into the vortex sometimes of other people's emotions, right? But it doesn't mean you don't see them nor that you don't care. So I just wanted to throw that in there because that's, I've been through that, and it really surprised me when people said, oh, but you're so empathetic. And I thought, not really. You know, not, I mean, I'm sensitive and I care about people, but it doesn't come from that talent place. So thank you. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. So when I'm working with doTERRA leaders with empathy, we talk about volume control, because a lot of them are like, so you have to remember who, and coach people into who are they supposed to be for whoever, whatever they're triggered about, or whatever they feel wrapped up into, or whatever they're connected to in that empathy. So I ask them, who are you for this person that when you think your empathy is holding you back from supporting them? Because empathy needs to be heard. So there's one component of that, not only for their own emotional well-being, they need to go vent. Some of my highest empathy clients are the most sarcastic people I've ever met, if it's sometimes paired with positivity. And I love it because they just can go say it. And I'm like, I was feeling that. I didn't have words for it, but they can't help it. They got to get it out. So if that's not who you are for them, tell them to go find somebody that they can go do that with. It doesn't have to be you as their mentor. So then you start helping them to take ownership of whatever that trigger is. So it's like, so who do you have in your life that you can go vent about those things? Because I think what we wanted to do with our time was work on this. Sometimes, you know, and that might feel like cold and disheartening for some. And also just that they really feel seen in there. Like, I see your empathy. Do you feel like, what else could you drive the bus with if empathy wasn't working? Like, who else? And think of their, like, what else could they use in their top 15 to approach it differently? Because they do have volume control. They can learn to do that, but that is what their personal work will be if they're not achieving their things. But great conversation. This comes up a lot in our groups, and I see a few of my high empathy people here, and I hope that you feel seen and heard. And it's just good. We have to stay in that together. But it is tough. I feel like I step on a lot of toes, but it's like that with any other themes. This one's just sort of loud because they tell us. Like, my husband's like, how did you miss that? Like, oh. like I didn't even see it. I wasn't tuned into that. Not because I don't care. Connectedness is number one for me. So I care a lot, and I want to do it right because of some of my other strengths. But it's just one of those things that I know is a part of me. I know what I am. I know what I'm not, and both are okay. That's all. That's just going to be a part of it. Everybody has a blind spot. So thank you for that. Okay. Looking through here before we do the coaching. Okay, let's see. Empathy and adaptability are my top 1 and 4 strength, yet it's always felt like I roll over to keep the peace, but it usually feels really lousy in my body when I do that. Yes, empathy, adaptability, the combination of that. That's my husband too. I have 4 clients right now that have that, so I must love you guys. I'm attracting that all over the place. So yes, I roll over to keep the peace. Well, adaptability is a first responder. So, and I find those adaptability podcasts to be incredibly resourceful for people who have it, because it's hard to know what that is. And when you know where to use that strength, I think that's in your own life and in your business, adaptability can really change forms. But if you look at it like, if you're hooked by the emotions of others, so you're responding and first responding to needs that are out there, then your strengths have fallen on that strategic interdependence. Where do you think they've gone? All the way to the bottom in codependence. Remember that visual I showed you earlier? So you want to say, what does empathy, adaptability look like in interdependence? Very, very different. So we want to know, that's why I use that strategic interdependence diamond when we're looking at all of this, because when your strengths are raised up, they're not in the basement, and we're working together towards the goal and we're aiming them, you can find a new way of being. That's like that through the looking glass is like, I want you to see it in a whole other way. So what would it look like if it was working? Well, I would probably go make time for myself, or I wouldn't take responsibility for what's their responsibility, or I would, so you have other resources and thoughts. So we just have to notice, where am I on that diamond? What was frustrating? And how do I raise everything back up? So that's a simplified way of looking at it, but it is something good. I do hear that a lot with empathy adaptability. Okay. Let's see, what I would think of as leader strengths are all towards my weakest. Adaptability is my number one. So yeah, so you have to break up with that, Joanna. Where are you? Where are you? I can't see your face, I don't think. So yes, we all have a vision in our mind of what good leadership should be. And like if we made a list right now, and in one of my classes I do this with you guys, some of you have been there. So we're like, okay, what do we define as an excellent leader? And we make a list. A leader should be what? Well, they should be confident. They should like meeting new people. They should, this is what I usually hear. They should have an organized vehicle. They should eat healthfully. They should know everything that there is to know about all of the strengths before they talk to anybody. Some of you have some of these stories going on in your head. What are some other things that you can type in the chat box? Define what leadership should be. And oftentimes we think that because it's we're looking at our blind spot. Like for me, I'm like, oh, leaders should know every scenario so they don't have risk. Well, that's deliberative 34. I don't think in all the scenarios. I don't think like that. I take risks. But some of those risks I took are why we're all here together in such a big group tonight. I didn't figure out how to put it all together first. I'm like, I'm just going to go show up and see who comes. And you know what happened? My group doubled this week. I don't understand it. This is just how it is. I'm just going to keep showing up. I invited Joe with me because I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I mean, I know how to coach, but I got to figure out what you guys need, and we're going to put some stuff together. So we'll do a long pilot and get it right. If I had high deliberative, maybe I would have done more research first, but I'm not hooked up on that because I know for me, I'm just going to keep showing up with you, and we're going to do some things together. So you have to define what that is. Let's look at these. A leader should be someone you can trust. Yes. Yes. So knowing this, that we all define leadership differently, you can embrace who you are and then go partner with those people. Joe is an amazing communicator and a maximizer. Communication is 18 for me. Maximizer is 25. I love having her at my party and at my table because she has a way of doing it and showing up. I have way more fun when she's around. I want you to think about your team in that way. Like who on your team can stand in there with you so you don't have to be all of it, because it's really about us. Some of you are really present with that because you also have connectedness. Like we love the us. We always feel the us. Some people don't have that sense of us, and I just want to honor that. Like I know not all of you are feeling that way. Some of you feel very alone and isolated, and you need to join Spark so that you're not that way anymore. I'm just saying. Yes, let's lead together, Kylie. 100%. 100%. Okay. So to close this group, so I want people who weren't able to be here to have a complete thought here. I will go ahead and share the screen that shows those programs. So everybody's on the same page of how to get over to Spark. And this will not be the only opportunity to do that. That's the one that we're talking about today. So the trajectory that I work with that will be going up on our membership site within the month is Spark Your Strengths, which is a group mastermind. So you can commit to the learning, getting really intentional about the strengths, really focusing, learning to cheer others on, bringing your people with you at a very low financial investment, and everybody is invited. So that's $49. Probably the new website will be done by the end of April. And so that will be automated, and it will be some videos and some things in there. Into the Looking Glass, 6 group sessions. And this is that interpersonal work, that inside out leadership. So you're really looking at your strengths lens, you're embracing your blind spot, and you're starting to own your leadership and raise your confidence. Silvers and above, if you qualify, if you aren't a silver yet and you really think you're ready for that level of work, then I will take you through a brief assessment with my assistant to see if you're ready to be in there, because you might be. The LEAP is a little bit longer program. It takes us about 4 months. And so platinum and above, most times a diamond is going to put that together for their frontline. Also, anybody who has been into the looking glass, anybody who has been in the grounding, which was the individual program I offered, they will qualify for the LEAP. So you don't have to know anybody that's coming into the LEAP. Some of you want to do it together with your team and really work on how you relate, but there will be a LEAP available in May for people who have graduated into the looking glass. So when they're done. Okay. If you want more information, I want you to send me a message about that. So you're going to turn the voices in your head into an all-star team. You're going to set the conditions for your personal peak performance or optimal performance. You're going to manage your energy and design your time using these strengths. You're going to motivate anyone, including you. That's what's so exciting about this. You're going to learn to facilitate a 21-day Spark experience for your team. That's one of my goals for you. Some of you really are ready to do that. And you can join Spark tonight. I will add you when we're done. You have these other opportunities. And lastly, I do offer a retreat. The retreats are amazing. We just did one in North Carolina. I have 2 more scheduled. So I call them You Are Enough at this moment. And it's Friday night, Saturday, Sunday morning. You create the space. You go rent an Airbnb or find the place. We put the people together. You pay my training rate. And we have a very experiential experience. So it's not just strengths learning. There's a little component. You have to have done Spark to do this retreat because you need to know what your themes are. And then we go into this amazing immersion of really being together in a new way and looking at the assumptions that we make. We look at what we're making up success to be, and we're really starting to see ourselves. And I do a roundtable breakthrough coaching session where in person, everybody gets 5 minutes and a hot seat. And we just do one after the other, and we just clear blocks the whole way. So people have that opportunity. And it's very creative, and there's usually a hot tub, so it's a lot of fun. So that is You Are Enough. And I have to do a phone consult with you to get information about that, because I have to make sure that you are in the right spot for that for your team, and you guys are ready. So those are the ways that we work. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording because let's do some coaching. So thank you guys for listening who are coming in for the replay.